Welcome back to another AI Journal LinkedIn Live. Today, I have the great pleasure of bringing Bill Betcher and Ramona Aubry on from Expert AI. We've done several of these with the team at Expert AI, and today I really wanted to jump on. There's a lot of things happening around the NLP world, a lot of trends, a lot of things that we want to delve into and explore, and a lot of topics I'm personally interested in. I know a few of you have been reaching out to me from the recent research that we've done with Expert AI. And we're going to have quite a few exciting topics today around planning for success of NLP, what you and your team, what your business can do to plan for what's coming and what investment's happening and how to get the most out of NLP investment. But before we delve into all of that, Bill, Ramona, I want to welcome you both to the show today. And if we could please, Bill, starting with you, and then Ramona to you, please, get just a quick overview, introduction of who you are and what it is you're doing in your day-to-day at Expert AI, please.
Sure. Well, Tom, it's great to be back with you. We filmed the webcast for the survey results a few weeks ago. We had a great deal of interest from that. Thank you for helping to facilitate that research. This is the second time we've done a big research project with the AI Journal. And that's one of the areas that I focus on at Expert AI, is trying to understand where our technology around natural language understanding, natural language applications, can fit into customers' needs and starting to tell the story around that. So I've been with Expert for a little over a year and a half now. Officially, my title's product marketing, but I consider myself sort of a jack of all trades. And lucky enough that I get to partner occasionally with people like Ramona, who really sit there at the front lines and work with customers day in, day out, solving their problems.
Love it. Ramona, it's great to have you on as well. I'd love an introduction from you, please.
Sure. Thank you for having me here. My name is Ramona Aubry, and I'm the head of customer success in North America. My role is to help our North American clients attain their business objectives while using our technology. A little anecdote on my side is I've been with Expert for 8 years, and I have a PhD in computational linguistics. So I'm really fascinated with data and technology, and I'm here very, very happy to be here and talk about it and the way we use technology with our clients today.
Yeah, that's really cool. How was that process with you, just quickly, to get in that PhD with computational linguistics, was it? How did that all unfold?
Well, I did this in France, and I actually worked with a few companies that were looking to automate the way they were working with data, and I built a few dictionaries to help them streamline their business processes. So that's how I started my PhD thesis on events, economic events. Wow. So that's how the journey started. That was a long time ago.
Yeah, I love it. And it's awesome to see that journey is still going, Ramona. So I'd love to jump into this. We've got quite a few or some important questions to get through, and areas that I want to kind of uncover with you both and really grill into from your experience with what you and the team are up to at Expert AI. I'd like to start, maybe Ramona, if you can, building off what you just mentioned there, which is really helpful. Where are companies deploying NLP across the enterprise at the moment? It's a growing topic. It's important for business to understand how it's being used, how they can leverage the power of these tools and opportunities available to them. And obviously with ChatGPT, I'd love to know, just from your angle, where are companies deploying NLP across the enterprise at the moment? Give us an overview, please.
Sure, I would be happy to. So what we have seen with the survey that we ran a few months ago is that the NLP is obviously on the rise. And we have more and more companies that are increasing their investment in this space for NLP projects that can deliver value for their organizations. What is even more interesting, I would say, in this landscape is that companies are very focused on specific, I would say, use cases that can be associated with pain points that their businesses are going through. And what we have seen, especially in North America, is that NLP is being deployed in the enterprise level, depending on the needs that each department in an organization has. We usually work with IT and product teams that are the ones that embrace the NLP projects or initiatives, and they come up with common, I would say, challenges for their industries that we can categorize in multiple facets or categories. I'd like to mention a few ones which we've seen quite often that could, I guess, be generalized across multiple industries.
Yeah.
So the first one is around what we call automating language intensive processes. This is very typical of organizations that use a lot of data that is linguistic data that they need to process, and they need to get insights to make faster decisions for this type of data. So I would say that this particular use case is typical of enterprises or in the insurance space, but also financial services and others that rely on subject matter experts who usually analyze a large number of data, and they need to scale up the way they extract key information from this data. So this is, again, a very common use case for which automation is needed, NLP is needed, and it's one of the, I would say, most common ones, like I said, across industries.
Amazing.
A second one, it's I would say more around something which is very common even for our everyday life, which we could see in multiple domains.
Yep.
Is around analyzing customer complaints and sentiment.
Yep.
So we know we've all had reviews that we've submitted for a specific product or service that we came across. So how do we make sure that the type of feedback that we are giving back is actually transformed in insights that are useful for the company that is delivering that service or that product? So this type of use case for NLP, I would say, helps removing any bias from the information that is sent by the end users that share this type of feedback or complaints about their product, and helps us understand what exactly we need to focus on improving for our service or for our product. Again, it's quite common, and we've seen it emerge in the last years as a more and more interesting use case for organizations that care about the way that their company, that their brand is perceived, but also I would say for organizations that are more focused on driving engagement from their customers and also from their employees. And this is where sentiment and the way NLP extracts, I would say, key behaviors, emotional traits, and what have you, can help deliver value in understanding what exactly the sentiment is all about and how we can use that to improve the user experience or to drive more engagement from our customers or employees.
Yeah, it makes a great deal of sense, right? So if you look at customer service interactions, a lot of companies are trying to be really forward and digital centric, but unfortunately, customers use words and language. And that has intent, and you have to be able to understand what that means. So it requires a level of real understanding, like the kind of support that Expert AI can offer to know what to do with those words, even if they're captured electronically, submitted via an email or whatever the case is. So, looking to essentially get value out of all of this forms of customer interaction, I think is one of those common areas that companies are really looking to try to understand what that approach can be. From my perspective, just being in the industry for the last year or two, I get the sense that NLP is almost in this second wave, where early NLP solutions were very much sort of conversational AI chatbot focused, but now organizations are really trying to figure out what business problem, like what big business problem can they solve using these natural language applications. And that's why when we saw in the survey that 77% of companies that were already working with natural language were looking to make an increase in that spending, it's that they are starting to see success. And that's because there are technologies and AI techniques that can now make it a little bit easier to get up and get started. Not to say that computational linguists aren't important. They're incredibly important, but sometimes there's a need to be able to let a citizen data scientist, go in and actually be able to manipulate the data, or even in some cases have like a subject matter expert. And that's one of the areas that we often work in, is how can we help augment what an expert can do so that they're a little bit more scalable and they don't have to do those sort of low level tasks as often.
I love that. And I feel like a big point of it is, and I've mentioned this to you before, Bill, and what you if I've heard that correctly, Ramona, is, and what you were saying as well, Bill, is the context in which it's put and understanding it of what's available to us. And I think that's a big area, and why I see everything from Google Voice increasing to people using it for certain areas, insurance using it, healthcare using it, because it can be so powerful And I mean, more than 3/4 of the people saying they're going to increase spending in that area. It's a huge opportunities for business to leverage, and it's a huge way of how I see business being done and achievements being made through things through what NLP can help with. So it's a great point that you've made.
Yeah, I think the one other thing I would say is, right, so a lot of companies have explored how to work with natural language solutions, finding use cases, but a lot of times that journey involves starting with a point solution, like say a way to analyze the voice of the customer. And those point solutions they may be really good and quick and sort of turnaround, but they're sort of like one trick applications in that they're designed to do one thing well, but they're not easy to customize. You don't get to sort of reuse and leverage that again. So I think companies are starting to sort of figure out, like, how can I get a little bit more strategic about what I'm going to do with my natural language data, and then figure out, well, what's the right way to do that, both from a technology and a methodology perspective.
Yeah, love that. No more one-trick ponies. I like it.
Yeah, I think that what I would like to add for these use cases, again, that can range from simple automation tasks like Bill was mentioning, that could augment the expertise of subject matter experts or other type of experts like scientists by adding more focus for them on tasks that are more high value. Is that all of these use cases are often tied to business objectives that are focused on increasing revenue or reducing risk, mitigating risk, or reducing cost. And as mentioned before, for the voice of customer use case, it's about improving customer and client experience. And the same NLP initiatives, I would say, are linked to programs that come in support of digital transformation, which has happened massively in the last 10 to 15 years. And this happens mostly for companies where unstructured content is at the heart of the business processes. And this is where the urgent need for automation comes, because to Bill's point, we want to transform this type of unstructured content into language data that can help with the decision making and that can streamline some of the workflows that are still dependent on this type of content. Yeah. And what is encouraging in our NLP survey, what we've seen is that 4 out of 5 companies have this type of NLP use cases in production, and that's really encouraging. That's what I'd like to add.
I love that. That's a great point to follow on from what Bill was saying. So I want to know, continuing the conversation that we were on that topic, how do companies plan for NLP project success, or what do teams do maybe? Or Bill, you were mentioning the mixture between how many different roles are involved in it, from the citizen part, developer, to the people that are very well trained in the back end, more technical areas, I'll put it. What should teams do to best prepare for NL project success? What have you seen work? What frameworks, what strategies do you see work? Bill, maybe start with you and then to Ramona.
Sure. Yeah. I think the one key thing I'll say is it takes a village. And it really takes a village, and everyone has to be sort of on the same page, understanding what you're trying to accomplish. And, part of that whole concept of takes a village is that they have to be focused on a problem that is actually a meaningful business problem. Sometimes you see that there's organizations that are exploring AI just to sort of see what it can do, maybe see where it fits. I think when you're working with natural language problems and trying to create business value from them, you have to be sort of specific. And that really is sort of the case around the ability to automate what might have been historically an incredibly manual approach that required lots of people to spend time interpreting, extracting, moving from terminal A to terminal B, typing stuff in. And that in practice, if you can put together a plan with the right people, and you actually have a business problem underneath it that is meaningful enough to solve, you can get a real return in benefit. But Ramona, you deal with customers every day, and you actually sort of guide them through this process to make sure they have the right village.
Yes, you're right. And my favorite way to answer this is around planning for success. So what we're doing with our customers is that we build these mutual success plans that translate our product into business value for them. So we focus, like Bill was saying, on the objective that drives this type of initiative, but we map this objective also with desired outcomes. So what will the NLP project achieve? What problem will it solve? And how will we measure success? So this is very important because if we have a very clear idea of the objectives and we map these business objectives with, like I said, key results or expected outcomes that can be measurable, then we really have a very tangible way to path to go to build the success for this type of project. What this means, like, let me give you an example. For instance, if we have as an objective to automate manual workflows that are time consuming, and we want to reduce the time from 1 hour to 15 minutes to run a business process, we map an objective with a key metric. And we know it's measurable, we know it's attainable, so that really helps us build the right team to implement this type of project and also measure the progress toward that goal. In addition to these objectives and key results, obviously we have also strategies that we recommend to our customers depending on the way they will implement the project, whether it's their own implementation or if it's driven by us. So we come up with different techniques that we recommend, and that gives them again a clear guidance on how we will get to that objective, what kind of techniques that are core to NLP will implement. Yeah. And this builds confidence with our clients.
Yeah, I love that. And I'd like to ask Ramona to build on from that, from planning for NLP project success. If there was a company out there that's listening to this in pick an industry, whatever you think, and say a medium-sized business that's trying to scale and get bigger, what kind of areas would you recommend or tell them to start with for their project success? Is there a one set starting point, or is it a series of questions, or looking at it, what would be key criteria for them to really explode the success that you've seen with Expert AI's clients at the moment?
Yeah, so yeah, I would start with the why, right? So before embarking on an NLP initiative, or before actually, like coming up with this urgent need to use AI or NLP, we need to define very well the why, or the reason for which we really need to do this now, and why this is important, and most importantly, how this will impact the organization in an economic way. So to answer your question, Tom, if we look at the evolution of AI or NLP in the last years, it went for something that was very aspirational to something that became mainstream extremely quickly. Yeah. And there was also a lot of education, as you can see, every day in your journal with all the articles you're publishing, a lot of education around what AI represents and how each organization should tackle projects that are in this space. Yeah. What we've seen, for instance, with our NLP surveys, that a lot of organizations start thinking first about the techniques that they want to use, which I think it's not the right way to approach this. It's more like I said before, the why. Like, why do we need AI? What is the problem that we're trying to solve? And once we have a clear definition of that and how solving that problem will impact the organization, then we can start thinking about the methodology. So I'd start with the why we need this, and then switch into the how. That's how I would approach this. Not necessarily a list of questions, but a very simple framing of the problem. Like, why do we need this? Why should we do this? And how it will help our organization.
I think every company is going to be a little unique in what is the area where the application of natural language technologies can provide a real meaningful benefit. A lot of, if you listen to some of the analysts' research out there, they'll say that you should focus on customer experience areas. If you're in a customer-centric business, that's an area where you can get a great degree of sort of leverage and benefit, as well as automation. Well, if you're in a very process-heavy industry, like, say, insurance claims handling, then accelerating that process has the benefit of helping you respond to your customers more quickly, but also lets you then be able to accelerate the process so you can scale with the same amount of resources, handle more volume that's out there. but each company is going to have their own sort of metrics that they use to measure success. And I think the key is just to make sure that you understand that it's a big enough problem that you're going to try to tackle, because an investment in natural language, these are not inexpensive projects. And the fact that they require ongoing sort of care, nurture, and feeding over time means that there's a real ongoing cost to them. Forrester Research came out a couple of months ago and made a pretty provocative statement, said that most companies who are trying to develop natural language technologies probably should buy a solution rather than trying to build one on their own. And I think that's maybe one sort of hidden recommendation is work with people who have done it before. If you go out and try to build it all on your own, you might get there, but it might be a little bit expensive. It might take a little bit longer than you had hoped, and you might not get to the level of accuracy that you're looking for to create that sort of ROI on the project. So, obviously Expert AI, we have a great deal of experience doing this, but there are other organizations and groups out there that you can work with.
Yeah, I love that. And we had a very similar conversation with your colleague Walt as well when we were on here, and we got down some interesting conversations around what the next person's going to be, the next roles that are going to be in businesses for tomorrow and everything, which I recommend people to go watch, because me and Walt from Expert AI had a great conversation around that. But building off what you were saying, Bill and Ramona, I'd love to know what kind of, or where you're seeing it, maybe Ramona from your side, and what you see from a customer side, and the background that you've explained, and Bill from your side. Because we looked at it in the report, the core challenges in LP deployment. Bill, you just mentioned it there. People trying to, or thinking, or maybe looking at the potential of building in-house compared to going externally and going to the experts. Me personally, and anything I always do, I'm very transparent. I always think, why should I spend my time? Know what you're a specialist at and stick to that area, and make sure that you bring in the right resources, whether it's in a business or personal or whatever sense, to leverage that, because you can get there quicker, more resourceful, usually at a better rate, and all these better things. But I'd love to know, what are the common challenges, Ramona, or the most common ones that you're seeing, and maybe I'd say challenges at the moment, that NLP projects and the team that are running these projects likely face? Because I know that we looked at it in the research. There were things such as the top challenges. There were challenges in NLP maturity, and then how they were being deployed. I think there was the stat was 47% looking to combat data protection, for example, accuracies. But without just listing all these off, and I want to hear from both of you, what are the common challenges you see?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think understanding also the challenges will help us overcome some of these obstacles that drive adoption for NLP projects. I think that it depends pretty much on the level of maturity that AI maturity that each company has, right? So there are some common challenges across the levels of maturity, starting with I'd say companies that are just getting started with NLP, and they haven't really experimented a lot, and they don't know what it takes to deploy such solutions. And then you have more mature companies that have been doing this for a couple of years, and then you have even more mature companies that are well oiled in deploying this type of technology, and they actually aspire to scale even more what they're doing. The most common challenge that I've seen is around what we call data privacy and access. So then that applies even for more mature organizations in some cases, because data usually is owned by a different team than the team that actually leverages the NLP project. And it takes a tremendous amount of time and energy actually to gather the right data and make sure that it's accurate, that it's well fit for your project. Yeah. And there have been cases where we actually lost a lot of time with clients that were just starting to get the right data to start implementing the project. So to avoid such trap, we recommend that each organization builds a certain level of accountability of, who owns the responsibility of the data, and how can this team work with other teams to facilitate the access to the data. And in this way, we build this kind of, if you want, dynamic with the teams that are in IT, for instance, that can help us get access to the data and make sure that the data is is reliable, that accuracy is also often one of the, I would say, obstacles for jumpstarting projects or even for scaling projects that do not rely on data that is quite accurate. So by working closely with the departments that own or govern this data, we can establish this type of accountability and speed up the processes that lead to the implementation of the solution. So that the data privacy access, like I said, it's one of the major, I would say, challenges that go across different types of companies that have different types of AI maturity.
Yeah.
One other challenge that we've seen across also companies that, let's say that they overcame the challenge of the data access. It's more around the internal alignment that we have for the team on the goals for this type of initiative in the expected outcomes. And then this can come down to different things. What I was saying before around the why, it's actually something that applies to this challenge as well. So if we understand how the project that we're leveraging helps the organization and impacts it in a positive way from an economic standpoint, if we build the right case for that ROI, then we can drive that type of alignment within the teams that are part of the NLP journey. So our recommendation is that we work with teams that understand, again, that it's important to measure the success in the same way by thinking about the benefits that particular NLP project has for the organization. Yep. And we also work from the very beginning with the stakeholders that will be impacted by the NLP initiative. This internal alignment, if you want, around the goals and the outcomes of the project is also linked to the adoption of the NLP project. And I will give you one example. For instance, for customers for which we are building a dedicated solution, we might have NLP initiatives that are top-down. So we have a business stakeholder that sees value in deploying the technology. We're building a solution that has a lot of value for the organization because it can help with increasing revenue, reducing costs, or mitigating risk. But we're not super aware of the impact that this will have on the end users. And if we don't work with the end users from the very beginning, they will not feel like they are part of the journey, and there will be resistance to adopting that particular solution. So what we've seen is that if we work with the team that will use eventually the solution, and we also work with the team that drives the business initiative in harmony, then there will be no challenges on that internal alignment of the why. Like, why do we need this project and how it will help us? Yeah. So I would say internal alignment on goals and outcomes, and then the data access and governance are the main two challenges that I've seen. Yeah. Bill, any other challenges that
I would put a big star right next to engage the end users early and often, right? So one of the concerns that we've heard in the digital transformation realm for years is that all these workers are going to be replaced by robots. But that's not the case. It's not the case, but it's a natural sort of feeling that some knowledge workers may have, especially if they're not sort of read into the project and why they're trying to accomplish something. Now, there are benefits that we've heard from customers where if you can get your end users, say customer service teams, on board and help them sort of plot out the solution, they see what the value is for them in their day-to-day activities, and they actually end up being happier because they get to do what they love, which is solve real customer problems. It's not them moving things from column A to column B, so to speak. And so it's a little bit more fulfilling for them. It's amazing that data governance and the concepts around data privacy is one of the big challenges. It's a huge topic in the world of AI around governance and responsible uses of AI. But coincidentally, in the survey, it's the number one use case, which is how to protect privacy, private information via GDPR, or in the United States, we call it personally identifiable information, or health information. And one of the key areas that natural language can be deployed is, in essence, in masking that, so that it makes it a little bit easier to share that data, whether it's with an internal team for a project or even with an external vendor, which is quite often where the challenge comes. You know, a lot of companies won't even consider using cloud solutions because that means their data has to travel outside the wall. Well, if you could essentially mask all of your PII data, then you might feel a different level of sort of safety in putting it into the cloud for some additional processing or whatever.
Yeah, I love that. And it's clear as well what you're both saying as well, when you're really on that journey with them, as you were mentioning, Ramona, and both of you mentioned it. Bill, you said from engaging the users at an early stage, and Ramona really working with them. It was clear in the research as well that it was 86% of NLP teams with models in production for 2 years or more, we're increasing their investment even more. So that's an even bigger figure. So it just shows if you're on that journey from the start, they're really going to witness those ROIs and that positives. And just a note for people watching this, from my view, I always get the question of, is an AI going to take my job? And I understand why people sometimes might mention it. But all the research that I do and personally look at, I mean, if you look at how many jobs were taken when the car moved from a horse, or when a tractor moved from manual horse and cart on the field, it always took jobs, but they might replace for a lot more. And just this morning, the most recent research that I was reading was that 97 million jobs by 2025 will be created by AI. And that's about 6 months old, that research. So it just shows how much is coming in. So yes, I think maybe 20 million jobs were taken, 97 million jobs being replaced. And that's just off research that I've personally seen. It just shows that there's opportunity and opportunity and opportunity for people implementing NLP, and for using what you and the team at Expert AI show, and optimizing their cost or improving efficiencies or whatever it might be. So on that note as well, before I go off on a personal rant from an area that's very passionate to me and very enthusiastic for, I'd love to know, Bill and Ramona, from your area, how can NLP teams future-proof their NLP projects? Is there something that they can do? Is there something that you've seen personally? Was there something that you saw in the research? Maybe Bill, starting with you.
Yeah, let me start, because I do want to touch on this, right? You know, AI is sort of as a generational transformation, right? And for my kids who are in their early teens, they're going to use AI augmented capabilities for the rest of their life. And so I think when we look to the future, I think the one recommendation I would say is everyone has to have a plan, right? You can't just ignore what the power of AI is and how it can transform your organization. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to jump in and start multiple natural language projects now, but I do think it's the time to start to think about how you can start to leverage what a lot of organizations say is 80% of their data is unstructured. It's stuck in reports, customer reviews. It could be in medical records, all over. And by leveraging that, that's where we're going to get that sort of transformational uplift to get those 95 million jobs that you just recommended, Tom. So I think in terms of planning for the future, I think one of my key recommendations is just have a plan. But that plan is going to involve a lot of different aspects. And I'm sure you get this in a lot of your discussions with customers, Ramona.
Yeah, I agree with you, Bill. I think that, we don't have a checklist of things that we could do, but we know that the way that the human in the loop actually sees the transformation with technology will have a great impact of how successful these NLP initiatives are. I would narrow down, I would say, the criteria of bulletproofing for success around 3 major areas. The first one is culture. How mature an organization is for an AI journey determines a lot the success of the initiative. So I mentioned before, and Bill mentioned also, the importance of embarking the end users in the journey to adopt the NLP project. But it actually goes across the organization at different levels. So if we have a culture within an organization. We know that AI is important. AI is going to affect the way we work, the way we get better at our job. It's super important to have that alignment across the organization and understand that we need to do this as a team. If you have the champion that drives the NLP project that is really excited about the benefits of AI, and the end users or the other departments don't follow, then this is not a way to build success for such an initiative. So you need to make sure that you bring everybody on board, and from a cultural perspective, with what we call AI maturity or readiness, I think it's a better word, everybody needs to understand that they will be impacted by this change. And technology, can bring disruptive changes sometimes, but if there is a good level of awareness, of education around the benefits, this will definitely accelerate the adoption of the NLP initiatives. So I think culture is for me front and center in this type of readiness for success for NLP. Then there's another dimension, and I think you both alluded to this in terms of skills for the team. So we have different choices when we're deploying technology, either to deploy the technology for our clients directly, or work with them, enable them to use the technology in an autonomous way. So each organization should think about skilling their teams or outsourcing the skills for such an initiative, and make this decision early on. We came across situations where we had customers that were really excited to start on this journey, and then they realized they didn't have the in-house expertise, so they had to make a huge investment to bring more people on board and train them. So if we had a bit of more awareness around the skills that are needed for the teams that drive these NLP initiatives, then kind of like relieves the pressure of what should we have as a team to start on this journey. So culture, skills, and then resources. We mentioned the data accessibility, the data governance. Again, super important to understand how we can drive accountability for each team that is involved in this journey, and work with them in a harmonious way to make sure that we have all the resources that we need. We know how to build this end-to-end workflow with our technology, and make sure that the solution gets ingrained into our customers' daily life, and they can use it in an autonomous way. And obviously, there are other checklists that were elements that we could bring in a world where everything is changing every day in a very quick manner. We're also thinking about how we make more responsible choices in terms of AI approaches. So is the technology something that is more of a black box, and people will never understand how to optimize it? If that's the case, that's a risk. So when you start your project, think about having an explainable dimension to it, and saying like thinking about the techniques that you're going to use for your project, and making sure that everybody understands that this is something that can evolve. And then around the importance again of the human in the loop. Machines will never replace humans. We will always need the human in the loop to drive the car, if you want. Well, that's debatable, you might say, but in the end, the role of AI is to pair with humans, to make them better at their job, to make them make better decisions. And I think that from that perspective, that's also a very important element in this type of journey, because to your point, Tom, at some point it can create some kind of anxiety that people will be replaced by technology. And that can cause a resistance to adopt the NLP initiative as well.
Yeah.
So I don't really have more to add to that, but
no, I mean, I don't think you're ever going to replace experts. There's always a role for experts in any discipline or organization. And whether it's an expert based on knowledge, whether it's an expert based on their bedside manner, whatever the case is, I agree wholeheartedly. And one of the things that we talk a lot about at Expert AI is how do you capture and codify knowledge of different types, right? General basic knowledge of who, what, when, where, how. How do you get specific domain or company knowledge related to an industry, financial services, healthcare, etc.? And then how do you get process expertise, right? And so one of our beliefs is that the only way you can reach some of the levels of accuracy that a lot of these projects require to have a good ROI is you have to embed the expert in the process. And so that human in the loop approach provides not only that benefit of improving the accuracy for the projects and thus the ROI, it also makes it possible to have a degree of transparency and corrective action that is part of that responsible AI initiative around transparency. And, you know, as we're seeing, there's going to be a lot more regulatory discussion around what does it mean to be transparent and explainable in AI. And as soon as the government start to hand out fines for that, there's going to be a lot more action on it. So as you're planning for your NLP projects for the future, one of the things you can do to future-proof it is make sure that you have a choice that falls under the responsible category, whether it's around sustainability, explainability, transparency, or the ability to actually have human impact in terms of have human-centered design around it.
I love it. And it was clearly a good big point as well. Ramona, you said the word earlier on a couple of questions ago about accountability. So making sure that you're accountable of the actions you're taking, because I always think AI is only working off past data, right? Like it's only working off what we're putting into the loop, human in the loop. It's only working off what we get. So I always think with any business, with any person, whether it's personal or business, make sure you're accountable and make sure you're always doing the responsible thing. I don't know if people will agree with my methodology of coming to responsible AI in that manner, but I always think it's going to be pretty responsible if the people behind it are doing accountable actions, are doing responsible actions, because it was 74% in the research that was saying that it's how they consider each AI approach at the moment, which is fascinating, and I can only see that number getting closer and closer to 100% over the coming months or coming years. So it's a brilliant point to be mentioning.
It really is, and I think we've only just started to hear the stories where AI has failed. Right? Yeah. As AI gets deployed more broadly to new use cases, we're going to start to hear some stories that are going to be cringeworthy, I think. And so having that in your sort of your mindset about being able to look at the approach that you're doing and saying, is this right for the project? Is this right for the organization? And what is this ethical in terms of what the organization is trying to accomplish?
And I would add to that, Bill, that what's also going to drive, I think, more success in what we see is how easy it is to quantify the value of an NLP project or an AI project, or what we call that strategic ROI. This is, especially in the last years, it started to emerge more and more. This is how we judge or assess the success of NLP projects, by looking at some of the metrics that can give an idea of the final ROI. So most of our customers that we're working with in information services, for instance, they're looking at the time to production as a key metric or as a way to measure that investment. Others are looking at efficiency improvements, and others are looking at cost reductions. Yep. And if the organizations start measuring that more and more, then it's going to be also easier to justify the cost of a new investment for a new project, which happens for more mature organizations that have been deploying AI for a long time, because they can always have the proof of how this impacted economically their organization. So, one way to future-proof also the success of this initiative is take your ROI calculator from the very beginning and think of the areas that you will improve for your team and your organization as a whole, and start making some projections. And that will build also internal alignment and will give some more visibility on the expected outcomes and how they will be measured. And I think that's key for the future as well.
Love that. And just before, I know we've gone through quite a lot of big topics here, and we've got some really impactful information from both of you. So I just want to say a massive thank you for that, and to everyone joining us. But Bill and Ramona, you were kind of alluding to the question I want to ask. That's why it sparked me to ask it. Is there anything in summary for people listening today, people that are handling NLP teams, people that are thinking of going on this journey, or perhaps people that are far down this journey that are really one of those respondents that are increasing investment over the next year? Is there any, and Ramona, starting with you then to you, Bill, are there any tips or recommendations or any summary points that you would give people to think about for their next steps with their NLP journey through 2023?
Yes, as I was saying at the beginning, start first with your why. Like, why do you need AI? How it will solve your organization's problem, and how you will measure that. If you have these three things, then you can start about building the team that will drive this type of initiative. And keep in mind these different obstacles or barriers that we have for the successful deployment of NLP projects. I said it multiple times, but it's as easy as that. Like, AI is not this shiny object that everybody wants. It actually helps with solving a business pain point that has an economic impact on an organization. And instead of trying to boil the ocean, maybe focus on the most urgent problem that you want to solve, the one that will have that strategic value if solved. And that will help with all the rest. So that would be my recommendation. Think about your problem and see how how by solving it you will bring an impact to your organization that will be visible to everyone. So that would be my recommendation, more in a nutshell.
Love it.
Yeah, and I would just add to that look around at your peers and even your competitors to see how they're deploying natural language capabilities. Because within different industries or within different functional areas, there's a lot of similarity, and that can help answer your why. Right. So we see a lot of projects that are helping organizations understand the intent of requests that come in via their communication channels. And that could be someone who's trying to apply for something like a driver's insurance. It could be someone who's trying to change something with their bank account, and just look to see where NL has been deployed successfully before. And that might be a good sort of spotlight on where your organization could get some real value. And the other thing I would add is try to work with someone who's delivered a solution like that in the past, right? There's a lot of back in the mid 2000s, the aughts, as I call them, there was a lot of cloud washing, right? Yeah. Everything was cloud, and it wasn't clear if that mattered or not. Well, now we're in a little bit of the AI washing as well. So what I would say is, when you're engaging with your prospective partners who are going to help solve this problem, I would work under a trust but verify model, right? Make sure that they have the capabilities and can demonstrate those to you to solve the problem that you want to solve. Yeah. And then the other suggestion is just take a half step forward and look to the future and say, what's the next thing I might want to solve? Because if I develop this relationship with this specific partner, but they can't help me get further down the road, then I have to sort of start all over again. And one of the key things that is a real benefit around natural language projects is that there is a certain degree of reusability once you've built that sort of enterprise-wide knowledge graph. It has your terminology, it has your product names, it has your processes embedded in it in conceptual ways. So the ability to move from project A to project B it's a lot lower hurdle, both from an investment perspective, but also a time perspective.
Oh, I love that. Some brilliant takeaways to be using as well, because everyone is always looking to get the final action points and to look at what can I take away today to implement in my business now, ahead of starting or contacting the team at Expert AI, which is what I want to wrap up with. So I want to thank you everyone for joining. But Bill, Ramona, give me everyone that's joining us today, either live or on demand, where they can find out more about you, how they can get in touch with the resources you've got. I mean, you've got a massive knowledge hub on the website for starters, but from the two of you, where can people get in touch with you? How can they get started with Expert AI? And how can they have conversations like this, but one-on-one specific to their business?
Yeah. Reach out and visit the website, expert.ai. We run a regularly scheduled live stream that's focused more on NLP projects and different applications. So we're actually going to do one later this week on GPT-3. By all means, sort of sign up and hear our take on that, or just reach out to us individually. I'm happy to share my information. I'm sure Ramona would be as well, and we're happy to give our best advice.
Love it. That's brilliant. And massive thank you for joining Ramona and Bill. It's been a lot of exciting conversation today. Obviously, you can see that I'm quite fueled up by what we've been talking about. It's a very hot topic at the moment off the back of the research we've done. Other areas in the headlines, such as your webinar coming up on ChatGPT. So I'd encourage everyone to get registered for that, get signed up, look at the documents and the Knowledge Hub, on the website, and get in touch. But Bill, Ramona, massive thank you for joining. Been a very exciting session, and I'm sure we've got many more ahead of us.
Yep, that sounds great. Thank you, Tom.